Hey book lovers, Hadley here, and today on Hadley Reviews I'm going to be talking about The Paper Magician by Charlie N. Holmberg. But before we get started, make sure you bookmark my channel by subscribing and ringing the bell for notifications. With that shelved, it's time to share a bit about the author. So first off, Charlie is a girl. She was born and lives in Salt Lake City, Utah, and she graduated from Brigham Young University. Her author blurb talks about how she plays the ukulele, wears glasses, and is a Trekkie for all you Star Trek people out there. And she also does freelance editing. The Paper Magician was her first written novel. So on to the book. The Paper Magician is found in the fiction section at the library. It's considered adult fiction and not YA or young adult, although like the size and the title and like the cover kind of deceived me at first and may deceive others. Like surprisingly not, like it's considered adult fiction. It's written in a London locality, so it's best to read in a British accent, which I do not have. But if you listen to the audiobook, which I listened to a little bit of it, they've got a British accent. So there's 5 main characters in the novel. First is the protagonist, or the person that we're in their head, and that's Yoni Twill. And we get all of the action through her thoughts and point of view. She's young, so I mean, kind of makes you think young adult because of it. She's 19 and she's on the shorter side, 5'3". She also has orangish red hair with a braid, which reminded me of Anne of Green Gables, you know, little nostalgia for ya. So she's kind of got the fiery personality, the stubbornness that are sometimes associated with redheads. She has a perfect memory and is determined to become a magician. We learn that it's not the magic that she wanted, what she ends up being assigned to. She ends up becoming a paper magician. The second character who we're introduced to is the magician Patrice Abioski. We learn as readers that she's a glass magician, but we never get to see her use any of her magic. Hopefully that happens within the series. She's kind of like Sioni's mentor, and she's involved in the school that Sioni went to, the Tagus Praft School for the Magically Inclined. Next we get into the love interest. Magician Emery Thane, and Sioni is his apprentice, so it's kind of like naughty, get in with your teacher. But he's described as average build, wavy black hair, kind of falls below his ears. He's 30 and his eyes are a brilliant green that shines. And since we're in Sioni's thoughts, like he's very attractive, and we hear all about it. And we also hear about the antagonist, Lyra Hobson, through Sioni's eyes. And Lyra Hobson is described as like pretty alluring with tighter black clothes that sets off her figure. She has a bigger chest than Sioni and fairer skin. And so she's just obviously painted as like a rival right away from Sioni. Lyra Hobson, we find out, has turned to the dark arts and practices excision. Excision is basically using humans' flesh and blood to perform magic. And then last of all, we have Fennel. Fennel is a dog that Emery Thane makes out of paper for Sioni because Sioni misses her dog back home, and Thane is allergic to dogs, and so this paper dog becomes Sioni's best friend throughout the novel, and he comes with her on her adventure. Surprisingly enough, even though we read the novel through Sioni's perspective, she wasn't my favorite character. Maybe she's just too human, or I don't know what it was. She's just unsure of herself in a lot of ways. And although she's smart and she's resourceful and she's a good cook, she's either too flawed or too perfect. Like there's no real good in between. And so I think the novel would not have worked from a different perspective, but I sometimes found myself a little irritated with her. Emery Thane overall is a good man, and we come to know that within the novel because Sioni ends up tromping through his heart, like his literal heart. He's handsome and has attractive qualities. You know, he's attentive. He makes fennel for Sione, and he takes some time to cut out snowflakes for her to feel welcome. Maybe because Sione's in love with him, we don't get to see his flaws though, or they're glossed over. Like, his biggest flaw is that he can't seem to cook and he doesn't have fashion sense, which is not a big deal to some people. I'm mostly curious about Lyra because Sione doesn't really know her, and she only really gets to know Lyra through Emery Thane's heart. And like, Lyra's obviously the antagonist, so she's trying to kill Sione, and she basically tried to kill Emery Thane as well. So we don't get a full picture of who she is or who she was. She used to be in the medical field, so at one point she had to be nurturing, right? Or it had that side to her. I feel like that's something that would have been attractive to Emery Thane, her being in the medical field and wanting to be attentive to people. I really want to know more of her backstory. Like, why did she choose to betray Thane? What intrigued her about Incision? And what led her to like this forbidden magic? Okay, I'm gonna worm my way into the main plot or story of the novel. It's really basic. Sione is studying to become a magician. She gets assigned paper, which she's not thrilled about. She'd wanted to be a smelter magician, which is never really explained. It's just the idea that she can enchant bullets if she'd been a smelter magician. Instead, she bonds herself to paper, and you can only be bonded to one man-made material. And so she is stuck for life being bonded to paper. She learns basic folds, how to make birds and frogs, bats and fans, and then a fortuity box, which you might remember from childhood. It's one of these. So yeah, you read your fortune out of it. And that's like the basic things that she learns, except one day when she and Thane are sitting down to dinner, Lyra comes into the kitchen and she rips out Emery's heart. And Sione, who, you know, is described as excellent reader, great memory, she thinks about the diagrams that she looked at in her anatomy book that Thane had to read. And she's able to make a paper heart that helps keep Thane alive, while Sione then goes off on an adventure to find Thane's heart, get it from Lyra, and bring it back. Only when Sione does find the heart, Lyra enchanted it, and so Sione ends up getting sucked inside of it, and she has to make her way through the different chambers of his heart and through his memories of both light times and dark times. And she finds out that Lyra is Thane's ex-wife. And so that's a little interesting. A vision of Thane within his heart is able to help Sione learn some more paper spells that help her fight against Lyra. Spoiler alert, Sione is able to get his heart back and win the battle and revive Thane. So Thane ends up being okay in the end of the novel. As you can visually see, like I mentioned before, the novel is not long. It's not even 300 pages. You know, the type's like not small, but it's not huge either. So it's really quick read. The majority of the book, we are actually inside Thane's heart with Sione, facing his memories and dealing with the anxiety. Is Sione gonna get out alive? Is she gonna make it in time before Thane passes? And is Lyra going to catch her? One of the main themes is obviously the heart, both atomically and passionately. Lyra and Sione are fighting not only over the physical heart of Thane, but also his love and continued feelings. Lyra's got some need to still be loved by Thane, even though she chooses a forbidden magic and has committed atrocities and like has killed in the past, and she like basically is killing him now. Like I said, I wanted to know more of her motivations, to be able to understand her whys. It's hard to get that from Sione's perspective, since she's the one that is prejudiced against Lyra and we're pinned within her conscious in the novel. An interesting object to me was the fortuity box. It was a way of foreshadowing within the novel, and that's originally how we learn about Lyra, because when Sione practices with the fortuity box, she gives Thane a fortune and asks him who Lyra is, because that's the name that came to her. And we also get a hint that Sione is going to go on an adventure because of Thane using the fortuity box to show her. Thinking about that, like, we don't get to see what Emery Thane saw in his vision. We don't know if he knew Sione would be using his glider or trapped in his heart. Like we don't know what adventure he saw within his vision of the future. It's another mystery. Oh, a fun thing that magicians can do is when they read a story, if they say it with like the right inflections, images of the story play out in the air. So she reads like a story about, I think it's a bunny rabbit, Pip's daring escape, and she sees like images play out when she reads it with the right tone and inflection. When we read, obviously we can visualize it in our mind and get a picture, or like movies are like a projection of it, 3D projection, but it's on a screen. And so I think it would be really fun and fantastical if while we were reading, we could read out loud and have the images pop up. That would be something that would be really fun. There weren't any real zinger quotes to take away from the novel. There were some great lines that were humorous, like when Sione's in the middle of a terrible ordeal within the heart, and she comments that she deserves a stipend after the adventure. Who knows if she actually gets it or not, but yeah. Time for my overall star rating of the book. I'm giving The Paper Magician a 4-star review. Overall, I liked the book. It does deal with a few heavy topics, suicide being one of them, and lots of blood and gore is kind of mentioned. It does still feel like a young adult novel since it was so short, and I wanted a lot more out of it. That was Charlie Holmberg's first novel, so maybe as the series go on, it will develop a little bit more. I would recommend this book to those who enjoy fantasy novels, and even some young readers, depending on their past experiences with literature in general. If you liked The Paper Magician, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Do you agree or disagree with my review? Did I miss anything? Comment below with your experiences with The Paper Magician. And if you want to purchase this book, I'll have a link below in the description for purchasing it, or you can do what I did and book it to the library to borrow your own copy. If you have recommendations for other books I should review, comment their titles and authors below. I'm always looking for new reads to add to my shelves. Thanks for your support, and remember, reading is literature.